Welcome back to Birds of a Feather. This is your daily Baltimore sports podcast. My name is Nathan Stroud, and today we've got a lot of stuff to cover in today's episode of Birds of a Feather. This is episode 144 of the series, or really just of the show in general, and we've got a lot of stuff to go over. The Orioles and Padres game just ended about 5 minutes ago, where the Orioles got a 6-2 win over the Padres, and that also means that they have won this series. No matter what happens tomorrow, if they win tomorrow, they sweep the Padres. If they lose tomorrow, they still end up winning this series. They took the first two games against the Padres in San Diego. Very, very valiant efforts from this Orioles team. The offense yesterday, obviously yesterday's game was a very close 4-3 win. Today was a 6-2 win over the Padres. The pitching played very well. Rico Garcia came in from the bullpen, played some really late game heroics, straining the bases, and also Tyler Wells made his season debut and his return from the injured list, and he went out there, got through 5 innings of work, only gave up 2 runs, and had a very overall solid game. In his first game back, the offense played very well. Emmanuel Rivera and Jeremiah Jackson were responsible for literally all the runs that were scored by the Orioles. Emmanuel Rivera had two different 2 RBI base hits. So he had four RBIs on the day. He drove in 4 of the 6 runs, and then Jeremiah Jackson had a sacrifice groundout and a solo home run at the beginning of the game for the other 2 runs. So Jeremiah Jackson and Emmanuel Rivera scored all the runs today for the Orioles. And Jeremiah Jackson, man, we'll talk about him more in a little bit, but he has actually been so unbelievably good for the Baltimore Orioles since we called him up a few weeks ago. Not even a few weeks ago. It's pretty much been a month now. And Jeremiah Jackson, he is like a well over 300 hitter. He's like batting like a 330 something right now. He has 17 RBIs on the season. He has been incredible for the Orioles, and his name kind of gets swept under the rug because you have guys like Dylan Beavers and Samuel Basallo getting called up, and obviously those were the names that we were really focusing on and paying attention to. But Jeremiah Jackson, as I said yesterday, he has really made his name known, and he is somebody who I'm watching honestly just as closely as Samuel Basallo or Dylan Beavers, because at this point Jeremiah Jackson should honestly be the starting right fielder for the Baltimore Orioles next season. Like, I understand that Tyler O'Neill's there. I understand he's the one getting paid all the money. But Jeremiah Jackson has really, really been producing. Obviously, spring training will get more, answers for that. And there's still a whole, this whole month of September left of baseball for the Orioles and for Jeremiah Jackson. But he has been incredible over the month of August to start the month of September. He's been incredible. There's like every time. Like, it's surprising in a way because you don't expect someone like Jeremiah Jackson to do what he's doing, but he's proven himself. He has 100% proven himself. At the beginning, it came as a little bit of a surprise, but now, honestly, I'm kind of used to it, man. He has really proven himself. He's proved that he deserves to be here. He's proved that he deserves to be a vital part of the Orioles next season. I don't know if that's going to be a key rotational guy off the bench or if that's going to be a, everyday starter or whatever it's going to be. I trust our management. I know that sounds crazy to say, but I trust our management to, figure that all out. But Jeremiah Jackson's been elite. The Orioles get a win. They win the series. But also in this episode, I do want to go over, we talked about this a little bit yesterday and the other day as well. I want to do a Ravens season preview. I want to do an official 2025-2026 Ravens season preview, kind of just highlighting everything that happened this offseason. Highlighting the rookies that we drafted, highlighting the free agents that we picked up, highlighting just the overall story and headlines from this offseason. Obviously, there's not really any injuries that we really need to go over other than Isaiah Likely is the only major one. But Isaiah Likely this morning did tweet out a clock emoji on his Twitter, so that might be a sign that either we're going to have to wait a little bit for him to come back, hopefully in the first few weeks of the season, or he might be there week 1 against Buffalo. I don't know. Very cryptic message, but it is very interesting to just to kind of see from him. But we're just going to do a season preview for the Ravens, season preview for obviously the expectations for this team, how this team looks overall. We're going to go over the schedule as well. So this episode might be a little bit longer than some of the normal ones, but it is Ravens season. It is game week. The Ravens play football this Sunday night against Buffalo. I cannot wait. I get chills thinking about it every single time. And honestly, just get me to Sunday, man. Just get me to Sunday. I cannot wait to watch this Ravens team go out there and play. Obviously, we had 3 preseason games that we got to watch, but for a team like the Ravens in the preseason where we don't really play any starters, it doesn't mean preseason for the Ravens doesn't mean as much as it does to a team like the Browns or the Titans or someone like that. Preseason for the Ravens is for the rookies to go out there and do their thing, and maybe some undrafted rookies, guys like Jay Higgins, for example, guys like Jay Higgins who can perform well and make the team. So overall, the preseason for the Ravens wasn't anything too crazy, but this is meaningful football. It's happening very, very soon, within a matter of days, and it's very exciting. But let's just go over this Orioles game first. So going over this Orioles game, obviously the Orioles win this game 6-2 over the Padres. The Orioles record sits at 63-76 on the season. And we go over to the Padres. Obviously they are 13 games above 500. They're doing their thing. Obviously they're great. They're amazing. We know that. But the Orioles, 13 games below 500. Obviously, it's now the complete opposite from the Padres in terms of their record. But the Orioles get a big win. They also win this series over the Padres. And we go over to the Orioles hitting in this game. The Orioles went out there and put up double-digit hits, 10 hits on the day, 6 runs scored on those 10 hits. Obviously, we said earlier that Jeremiah Jackson and Emmanuel Rivera are responsible for all of the runs that were scored in this game. But Jackson Holliday had a pretty good game today, went 2 for 5 in this game with 2 strikeouts. Did get multi-hit game today for Jackson, one of 4 players in this game with multiple hits. Jackson Holliday, 2 hits on the day. He's really been actually playing very well here recently. He's had I think 3 multi-hit games over his last 5 or 6 games that he's played. So Jackson Holliday is starting to kind of get back into a rhythm. He was in a little bit of a slump over most of the month of August, but he is looking to be back to that leadoff hitter that we know and love. Jeremiah Jackson went 1 for 4 in this game with 2 RBIs and a solo home run. It was an RBI ground out and a solo home run, which was the 2 RBIs that Jeremiah Jackson brought in this game. He got the scoring started for the Orioles in the first inning with a solo home run, and he has been incredible. He's somebody who didn't hit his first home run for a few weeks, but he's hit 3 or 4 in the past week and a half or so. So Jeremiah Jackson's been doing his thing. He's been incredible. A 333 average and a 539 slug in his first 100 plus at bats. So it's incredible. It's incredible stuff by Jeremiah Jackson. He is really proving himself to the fullest right now for the Orioles. Gunnar Henderson went 0 for 3 with a run scored and a walk. Ryan Mountcastle went 2 for 5 with 2 runs scored. Colton Cowser went 2 for 4 with a run scored. Samuel Basallo didn't necessarily have the greatest game. He did have some issues behind the plate. Did have some issues catching with just some of those pop-up, quick throws or whatever. He had some issues there. Just a little bit off times and stuff like that. He also, misjudged a pop-up in foul territory, and he missed that. So didn't have the greatest day. Obviously, Samuel Basallo didn't, but yesterday he did have a 2-hit day with 2 RBIs in that game with 2 doubles as well. But today he goes 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts and a walk. So he does get on base 1 time, but does not get a hit. Does strike out 3 times in his 4 at-bats. So not a great game by Basallo. His average is sitting at a 200 flat, a 340 slug, and a 273 on base percentage. Not the greatest numbers, but again, this guy's extended for 8 years. This guy is the youngest player in Major League Baseball. For anybody that is freaking out and concerned about Samuel Basallo's production, needs to seriously check themselves, because Samuel Basallo is 21 years old. He just turned 21, and if people are thinking that he's going to go out here and hit on a 330 average and have 7 home runs by now, you're crazy, because again, He is the youngest player in Major League Baseball right now. We've seen so many flashes already of greatness. His bat speed, how hard he hits the ball, his opposite field power, which obviously ties into how hard he hits the ball. So we've seen so many good signs out of Basayo, and honestly, he could stay at this pace for the rest of the season over this next month, and I will have zero concerns and worries, because I know when he gets a full spring training to work out and play and be ready for the team, I know going into next year, going into his rookie year, mind you, next season, I know that it's going to be great, and I know it's going to be very, very, very special for him. Manuel Rivera in this game, he was the hero for the Orioles in this game on offense. 2 for 5 with 4 RBIs, drove in 4 of the 6 runs. It was 2 2-run base hits for Manuel Rivera. He's been playing pretty well since he's come back and got promoted back to the team with Jordan Westburg obviously out right now. Dylan Beavers went 0 for 3 with a run scored and a walk, and then Kobe Mayo went 1 for 3 with a walk and a strikeout. So overall, the Orioles offense did its thing, obviously heavily carried by Jeremiah Jackson and Emmanuel Rivera. But going over to the pitching, obviously Tyler Wells making his season debut, his return from the injured list. Tyler Wells gets the win in today's game, 1-0 on the season, gets a win in his return. 5 innings, 5 hits, no walks, 2 runs, 4 strikeouts, and a home run. A very solid first outing for Tyler Wells, an 85 pitch count across 5 innings. Obviously, that isn't great, but we didn't really want him to push it too much more because, again, he is coming back from injury. We didn't want to risk anything like that. A 3.6 ERA in his first start, not too bad for Tyler Wells, and it's somebody who's going to be kind of a back-end starter for the Orioles the rest of the season. And I think from what Tony Mancelino was talking about, I think that Tyler Wells is going to be part of the bullpen for most of the time. Not part of the bullpen, sorry. He's going to be a starter heading to next season. So Tyler Wells, Kyle Bradish, Trevor Rogers, Dean Kramer, hopefully Grayson Rodriguez. That is the pitching lineup that I can think of off the top of my head. Obviously, I would like to maybe go after a quality starting pitcher. Framber Valdez kind of pops into my head immediately as one of the top pitchers on the market. Obviously, another guy like Ranger Suarez as well. If we're able to secure one of those guys and add them into a rotation featuring Trevor Rogers and Kyle Bradish, I think that the rotation, in terms of the way that it looks, will look a lot better than it did entering this season, which obviously there was a lot of questions going on about what this Orioles pitching was going to be like this year. And it was answered that question was answered very, very quickly at the start of the season, obviously with everything that happened at the start of this year. But Tyler Wells is looking to be a starter moving forward. Sean Dubin came in, didn't give up a run. Cade Stroud came in. He actually loaded the bases with 3 straight walks, and then Rico Garcia came in in one of the biggest moments of the game and was able to get a strikeout and a ground out with the bases loaded, 1 out, and was able to get out of it in only 8 pitches. And then Albert Suarez made his return to the Orioles as well. He hasn't pitched since I think March 28th, so I think that was the second game of the season. So Albert Suarez has pretty much missed the entire year up to this point. But he was able to go out there and get through 2 innings of work, and it was perfect. No hits, no runs, no walks, and a strikeout as well. So shout out to Albert Suarez. Welcome back, Albert. Welcome back, Tyler Wells. And this Orioles team is looking a lot better as of right now. Obviously, you have the injury to Jordan Westburg, which does suck, and the injury to Adley Rutschman as well. But as it stands right now, this Orioles team is winning games. The Padres are one of the best teams in baseball. They're one of the teams that a lot of people are looking at to potentially be the World Series winners. Obviously, their acquisitions of Ramon Laureano and Ryan O'Hearn and Mason Miller and all that stuff. People are looking at the Padres to be a team that could potentially win the World Series this year. And the Orioles go into this 3-game series and take the first 2 from them, with Game 3 looming tomorrow. But if we go over and look at Game 3, and also the Orioles do have a day off on Thursday, so tomorrow we play and then we have a day off on Thursday. It is going to be Cade Povich versus Nestor Cortez. Extremely similar whips, literally a 1.43 to a 1.44 whip. Pretty much the exact same ERA, same whip, same amount of wins, but the innings pitched is 60 innings off. Nestor Cortez obviously hasn't played much this season. Cade Povich really hasn't played that much this season as well, so I do kind of expect this game to be high scoring, but hopefully Cade Povich can limit the damage as much as he can tomorrow. And hopefully the Orioles offense can continue to play well and get a win and hit off of Nestor Cortes pretty well tomorrow. Now we are switching it up and going over and talking about the Ravens. And this is the official 2025 Ravens season preview for this season. And there's a lot to talk about. And I kind of want to start off and really just talk about what happened this offseason in terms of the people that we signed and picked up off of, in free agency. So DeAndre Hopkins was the first obviously big name that the Ravens went out and got. We re-signed Ronnie Stanley at the at the beginning of free agency. We went out and we re-signed Ronnie Stanley, but right after the Super Bowl ended, DeAndre Hopkins was signed to the Ravens on March 13th. So he's been on the Ravens for quite a while now. But obviously, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see kind of the visuals of everything. But DeAndre Hopkins did get signed to the Ravens on a 1-year, $6 million deal. And DeAndre Hopkins obviously signs with the Ravens with the hope and thought that he's going to win a Super Bowl. He did the same thing with the Chiefs when he ended up going to the Chiefs. He got traded to the Chiefs last year. But he was on the Chiefs last year, but got traded there with the hopes that he was maybe going to win a Super Bowl. That's why the Chiefs ended up wanting to go get him. And now DeAndre Hopkins goes over and signs with the Baltimore Ravens to be kind of that wide receiver 3, for the Ravens. Obviously you have Zay, you have Rashad Bateman, you have DeAndre Hopkins now, and obviously you have guys like Devontae Walker and Tylan Wallace as well in that receiving room. But DeAndre Hopkins is a Raven, and at the time, obviously, it was a big deal because DeAndre Hopkins is obviously one of the bigger names in football. There were some people that was like, oh my God, DeAndre Hopkins is going to go back to being elite. We all saw what happened to Derrick Henry last year when he signed with the Ravens, but that is not what's going to happen. Or, maybe it will, and they would be crazy, and maybe I'll eat my words, and I'll gladly eat my words if that happens with DeAndre Hopkins, and he goes out here this year and puts up, 1,200 yards or something like that. But DeAndre Hopkins' role with this Ravens team is not to be a wide receiver 1-like player. He is going in here knowing his role of a wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4-like guy. And the reason why I'm talking about this, obviously when I say something like that, it might not sound so important. It might not sound like a super important signing if he's going to be a wide receiver 3 for this team. But it's DeAndre Hopkins at the end of the day. This is somebody who's extremely reliable to go to, catches the ball every single time the ball's thrown to him. When he was in Houston, when he was in Arizona, when he was in Tennessee, even when he was in Kansas City last year, he had some very clutch moments for them. He scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl. He had some very clutch plays for the Chiefs when they needed it. And DeAndre Hopkins is going to serve as somebody who can be a very big red zone threat alongside the tight ends, and also somebody who Lamar can just go to for a quick first down and know that he's very reliable. He's not going to be a guy who's going to get 100-plus yards a game like he used to in Houston and Arizona, but he is going to be somebody who can just be productive. He's somebody that can be that safety blanket for Lamar Jackson and just an extra, player added to this team. And if you think that DeAndre Hopkins going to the Ravens makes us worse, then you're crazy, because adding DeAndre Hopkins to this team, no matter what age he is, he has a very, very, very proven resume throughout his career. And even though he's at the age that he's at right now, I don't know how many years he's got left in him in terms of the NFL, but he's still somebody that can be a safety blanket for Lamar Jackson. It's somebody who really just overall completes this offense as a whole, I feel like. You have, obviously, Zay and Bateman as your solidified number 1 and number 2. You kind of have the safety blanket guy in DeAndre Hopkins. You have the guy who's trying to prove himself in Devontae Walker, who's been playing very good throughout training camp. And then you also have, a very good kick returner and a sneaky good option in Tylan Wallace. Obviously, you have your running backs. You have Derrick Henry, your main power back. You have Justice Hill, your receiving back. You have Keaton Mitchell, who's just a lightning bolt and lightning in a bottle type speed. And then you have Rasheen Ali, who's kind of a good power back and just someone who's a overall just very solid running back who's not going to get a lot of touches, but still completes this roster and completes this offense as a whole. So obviously at the time this was a very big signing. But going over to the other big signing that the Ravens had this offseason, and that was Jair Alexander. Obviously, Jair Alexander got cut by the Packers, and then about a week later, the Ravens went and signed him there was multiple teams offering him a lot of money. I know that the Raiders were offering him a ton of money. I know that the Panthers were offering him a ton of money because he's a very proven wide receiver. He's a veteran. I think he's 28 years old, so he's not necessarily like old, but he's been in, this is, I think, his 8th season now. He's been around for a while. He's 28 years old. He still has some, good years left in him as a corner. Obviously, cornerbacks and age with cornerbacks don't really tend to go too far into like the 30s or whatever, but Jair Alexander still has, some good years left in him, and he went and signed with the Ravens on a 1-year, $4.5 million deal with incentives that can, make the, contract end up being more. But Jair Alexander is somebody who, over the past few years, has dealt with some injury. He hasn't necessarily been available all the time for the Green Bay Packers, and there was disagreements on contract issues, and the Packers just ended up deciding to release him, and he was by far the best free agent on the market at the time when they released him. And a lot of people were very surprised by that because, there was rumors that they were just going to sign him and it was going to be like a sign and trade like scenario, but instead they just kind of released him altogether, and all of a sudden, a week later, and I remember whenever they ended up announcing the Jair Alexander signing, it was so weird because obviously Jair was a free agent, and I remember the day before we signed him, there was a reporter that asked Lamar Jackson about potentially going out and getting Jair Alexander, who obviously was Lamar Jackson's college teammate. They both went to Louisville back before they got drafted in 2018. They were both in the same draft class. There's a video of Jair hearing Lamar's name get called when he got drafted, and he was all super excited for him because they were teammates at Louisville. So they already have that connection together. So they asked Lamar Jackson kind of what his thoughts and opinions would be if they ended up signing Jair, and he was saying go for it. He was saying like something like, get EDC on the phone right now, like go get him, go get this guy. And then literally less than 24 hours later, no report by Adam Schefter, no report by Ian Rappaport, no report by any head media outlet ever. The Baltimore Ravens post a photo of Jair Alexander signing a contract, saying like, we got our guy, and then they posted a picture of him and Lamar hugging, and it was a very shocking thing. And the Ravens themselves broke their own news on Jair Alexander. I think I was taking a nap, and I remember I woke up and checked my phone, and it was like 2 minutes after they posted the original photo with Jair. It was like 2 minutes later they posted that, or 2 minutes later I saw that, and I was freaking out. Like, I was absolutely freaking out the fact that we got him. Then I saw that we only gave him a minimum contract, and it was even better. And this is somebody who obviously wanted to come to the Ravens because he has a role here. This team has Super Bowl aspirations, as we know, and somebody who obviously wanted to go and play with Lamar Jackson again. Obviously, they're not on the same side of the ball, but still being on the same team is a very big deal. He signed a 1-year deal. Do I expect Jair Alexander to leave after the season? Honestly, yes. Even if we win a Super Bowl, if we don't win a Super Bowl, I do think Jair Alexander will probably leave this year and go chase the money, because the Ravens for sure do not have the money to go out and pay Jair Alexander, $14, $15, $16, $17 million like what he was getting offered, but he took a huge pay cut, turned down a lot of higher offers from teams like the Raiders and the Panthers, turned down a lot of higher offers, and ended up coming to the Ravens with the goal of hopefully winning a Super Bowl. And he's somebody right now who has not practiced since August 9th, so it's been almost a month since we've seen him at practice. He's walking around, he's doing good for the most part, we think. He was at, obviously, the team pictures the other day. Everybody thought that he was like dead or something, but he was at the team pictures the other day. John Harbaugh did say that he expects him to be back at practice on Wednesday, or they'll kind of see what his status is on Wednesday. That's tomorrow, or technically, I guess that's today from when we're recording this. But Jair Alexander, we're going to get an update on him tomorrow about his injury and possibly his status for this Sunday's game. And to not have Jair Alexander would suck, obviously, but I'm still confident that this team without Jair Alexander is still amazing. But just adding Jair makes it that much better. And that was kind of like what the mindset was with getting him. I didn't actually think we were going to get him at all, but the fact that we got him was just crazy. But Jair is dealing with a little bit of a knee issue right now. It's been quite, obviously it's been almost a month since he's practiced. And is that concerning? Yeah. But I'm not going to sit here and say that we didn't expect that. him in Green Bay, his availability wasn't necessarily always there. He didn't play, I don't remember the last time he played a full season. I'm sure it's been a few years. So he has been dealing with some injuries, and they're always knee-related. So, again, the biggest thing with Jair, in my opinion, is rest him, make sure he's good to go for the most important games down the stretch of the season, make sure he's healthy for the playoffs, because Jair Alexander is one of those guys who can completely turn the game around with an interception or a pick six or something like that. He's an incredible corner. Marlon Humphrey is, a corner. Marlon Humphrey, and Nate Wiggins at corner, and Chidobe Awuzie as well, who's somebody that the Ravens signed this offseason as well. I mean, that cornerback room is filled with such incredible talent. And Nate Wiggins, who's going into his second year, obviously his rookie year was last year, he's having a chance to learn from Jair Alexander and Marlon Humphrey in his second year. So Nate Wiggins, obviously, he was amazing last year. I'm expecting him to get even better this season. And overall, this was a great signing. Just the value of it was great. The value of the DeAndre Hopkins signing was great. Obviously, you look at our draft of the guys that we ended up getting. You have guys like Malachi Starks, Mike Green, who are the two powerhouses. And we'll go over that in just a second. But, the value of the two veterans that we signed was elite. It was elite value. It was low risk, high reward signings. Where if it doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out. But if it works out, it could be literally game changing when it comes to the playoffs and when it comes to the really meaningful games down the stretch of the season. But overall, these were the two biggest things we did necessarily in free agent signings. Obviously, we extended Ronnie Stanley, we extended Derrick Henry, and we extended Kyle Hamilton just about a week ago. So getting those three guys locked down for the future was a very big deal, plus the veteran signings, plus the fact that, there is still maybe some possible extensions that are going to happen. I wouldn't say this week, but maybe sometime during the season. Guys like Lamar Jackson, guys like Isaiah Likely, guys like maybe Tyler Linderbaum. Those are the three biggest names that are not Lamar, but Tyler Linderbaum and Isaiah Likely are two guys that are going to be free agents next season, and they're not under contract going into next year, like next season. You know what I mean? But Lamar Jackson is going to get a contract extension. I know that. Eric DeCosta has to find ways around that, and obviously that's very, very, very difficult as a general manager. But going over this Ravens 53-man roster, and we've already gone over this back whenever they first revealed the 53-man roster, but just a quick rundown of the team as it stands right now. Lamar Jackson, Cooper Rush as your two quarterbacks, Derrick Henry, and I'm just going to say this in order kind of like position, like depth chart wise. Again, Lamar Jackson, Cooper Rush. You have Derrick Henry as a starter. You got Justice Hill. You got Keaton Mitchell. You got Rasheen Ali. You got Patrick Ricard as your fullback. Receiver wise, Zay, Rashad Bateman, DeAndre Hopkins, Devontae Walker, Tylan Wallace, LeJontay Wester. Very, very solid receiving core. Guys who I'm really expecting to make a big impact are guys like Rashad Bateman. Rashad Bateman is the guy that I'm really focusing my attention on this season. He's somebody who showed so much promise last season in the games that he played for the Ravens. He was incredible. Him and Lamar's connection is there. They have that chemistry down. I think back to the long throw at the end of the fourth quarter with the Ravens on their last drive of the game against the Chiefs. I think back to that catch. I think back to the long touchdown against Tampa on Monday Night Football. I think back to the incredible catch and pass by Lamar and Rashad Bateman in that Chargers game. You think back to all these very highlight moments for Rashad Bateman. He also scored the first touchdown of the game in that Bills-Ravens game in the playoffs. So Rashad Bateman is somebody who is a great deep threat, a great, just route runner in general in the slot, and a great red zone threat as well. He kind of has all the things you like to see. Rashad Bateman obviously did get extended this offseason as well, and he is somebody who I think can have such a monster year for the Ravens. When it comes to something like fantasy football, obviously guys like Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, they're not necessarily like the greatest guys to have on your fantasy team because of the fact that the Ravens spread the ball out so much, obviously with Lamar Jackson himself running the ball, Derrick Henry running the ball, giving it to guys like Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, DeAndre Hopkins, Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely. So it's not just like one specific guy in this offense that it's going to. It's a very much a complete offense in general. But at the end of the day, that's what ends up winning championships and winning Super Bowls. You have multiple different things you can go to be good at. You're very versatile in your offense. I look back to the Philadelphia Eagles. It wasn't just Saquon Barkley. Jalen Hurts can throw the ball to guys like Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert. You have Jalen Hurts who can use his legs. Obviously, you have Saquon Barkley there. Like, very, very diverse offense that has multiple different things that they're good at. And that's what this Ravens team is. That's what they were last year. That's what they're going to be even more this season. And obviously, I'm expecting this offense to be incredible. I'm expecting this offense to go out there and be one of the best offenses in the NFL, a top 5 offense in the NFL. They have the opportunity to do that. Lamar Jackson obviously has the opportunity to go win another MVP trophy. He's one of those players kind of like Nikola Jokic, which obviously Jokic's stats every single season in basketball are like crazy. He's averaging 30-point triple-doubles. He's doing his thing. He's going crazy. He's top 3 in assists. He's top 3 in rebounds, top 3 in points, and he's incredible. Lamar Jackson is kind of like that exact same way, where his stats when he plays a full year are just dumb, just absolute video game numbers. Obviously, you look back to last season. 800 plus yards rushing, 4,000 plus yards passing, 41 passing touchdowns, only 4 interceptions. And I know this isn't in the stats, but 3 of them weren't even his fault. Only 1 interception that was really his fault, and that was in the game. That was in the second game against the Steelers. But we still ended up winning that game. But this offense is going to be incredible. Obviously, you have the tight ends. You have Isaiah Likely, Charlie Kolar, Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews could have a very big role early on this year if Isaiah Likely is hurt, but we don't really know the status on his injury just yet. But when you look at the offensive line, the starting offensive line, you have Tyler Linderbaum at center. You got Roger Rosengarten as right guard. You've got Andrew Voorhees as left guard. You got Daniel Falele as right guard, and you got Ronnie Stanley you have Ronnie Stanley left tackle, Roger Rosengarten right tackle, Andrew Voorhees left guard, Daniel Falele right guard, and then obviously Tyler Linderbaum at center. So those are the starting offensive linemen. You know, the guard position for the Ravens is definitely the biggest concern. Definitely the thing that I think people are most concerned about with the offense. And in terms of everything about this offense, I will definitely say that the biggest question is the guard spot with Andrew Voorhees and Daniel Falele. Daniel Falele, from reports in training camp, obviously in preseason as well, he didn't apparently from the coaches, he had a great training camp, but when you look at how he played in the preseason games, he didn't really play that well. And then for a guy like Andrew Voorhees, he had a really good training camp, a really good preseason. Overall, I'm not really worried about Andrew Voorhees. I think he's incredible. Again, he was that guy who a few years ago, if some of y'all remember, he was doing his bench press for the draft combine, and he ended up, no, it wasn't him doing his bench press. He ended up tearing his ACL during the combine, and he still did the bench press with the torn ACL, and he, I think, beat out every single offensive lineman on the day, which was crazy. So you could tell that he has that dog in him, tell that he has that fight in him, and he's finally getting a true opportunity to play left guard at a starting position to start off the season for the Ravens, and I think he's someone who's going to play very well. I kind of had that exact same thought with Roger Rosengarten, and Roger Rosengarten ended up being one of the better, tackles in the NFL last year. He was incredible in the second half of the season, getting compliments from a lot of guys, and somebody who's really, really holding it down last year for the Ravens. So the tackle positions, I'm not worried about. Ronnie Stanley, one of the best in the league. Roger Rosengarten, young, up and coming, and somebody who can be amazing. You look at the middle. Tyler Linderbaum, top 3 center in football, arguably the best center in football, but the guard positions are kind of the question marks right now. So it's going to be up to Daniel. It's going to be up to Daniel. It's going to be up to Andrew to be able to kind of prove their worth at that spot, and making sure Lamar Jackson is safe at all times this season. But going over to the defensive side of the ball. On the defensive line, you got John Jenkins, you got Nnamdi Madubuike, the stud, the elite man himself. You got Aeneas Peebles, the rookie, who has really been proving himself a lot of the times throughout this camp. Zach Orr and a bunch of D-line coaches were saying that Aeneas Peebles was one of the more shocking players of training camp and somebody who played very well. So the expectations on him are going to be high. You got Broderick Washington, and then you got Travis Jones. And there was a lot of really good stuff said about Travis Jones throughout this offseason. Zach Gore, I remember, was talking about how, he looks at Travis Jones and he tells him that you need to be the best player on the defense at all times. It's kind of giving him that confidence that, Travis Jones, who maybe not a lot of people really look at, can be someone who can be like the best defensive player on the field in his mind. And obviously when you're on defense, I think you have to have that mindset for like an ego and, ego boosted confidence and stuff like that. But there's been a lot of really good things said about Travis Jones and Aeneas Peebles, alongside Emmanuel Madubuike obviously being amazing. So I'm really looking at those three guys in particular to be amazing this season and really have a big year. Travis Jones especially, it'd be really cool to see him get it going. And then Aeneas Peebles, the rookie, doing his thing as well. If you go over to the linebacker list, and this is very, very interesting. Obviously, Roquan Smith, the Mike himself, the man in the middle, really the leader of this defense. I don't think he's the best player on this defense. I think that goes to Kyle Hamilton, that we'll talk about in a little bit. But Roquan Smith, the interior linebacker, he had a little bit of a down year last year. He didn't necessarily do as many things as he did back in like 2023, for example. So last season, he did look a little unathletic. I'm not saying that he's unathletic. I'm saying that he did look a little slow sometimes on some of his chase downs, some of his tackles and stuff like that. But Roquan Smith is still one of the elite middle linebackers in football, right there with Fred Warner. You have Trent Simpson, who I'm expecting to have a good year as well. Jake Hummel, the undrafted free agent. Teddy Buchanan, who we ended up drafting this season, who made the team. And then obviously we look at the man himself, Mike Green, the edge rusher, Mike Green. Somebody who's been a very big talk conversation throughout training camp as somebody who is elite. And I've said this story 1,000 times about how we ended up getting Mike Green. He had a bunch of off-the-field issues that, as of right now, there's nothing really about them. There hasn't been any sort of clarification about any of that. But all that I know is that he's good to go to play football. Obviously, the off-the-field stuff will be solved when it's solved. But when it comes to Mike Green, he was somebody who was a top 15 talent in the NFL draft. Top 15 to top 20 talent in the NFL draft. He led all of college football in sacks last season, and he's somebody who fell all the way to the Ravens in round 2 because of off-the-field issues. And the Ravens, Eric DeCosta, they said, and they've claimed that they have done the most research on anybody that was looking at him. So I'm going to trust them on that, on their behalf on that. But Mike Green, as the football player, is elite. He's somebody who has a chance to be arguably the biggest steal of this entire draft. Mike Green is somebody, again, that the Ravens needed. Pass rushing was kind of a need for the Ravens, like a young pass rusher. There was people saying that we should go get Micah Parsons, but when you look at what he got traded, there was no way in hell we were going to get Micah Parsons on a long-term deal. But Mike Green is somebody who, obviously, he was incredible for Marshall last year, led off college football in sacks. He is so incredibly explosive at the line. The way that he bends his body to get around offensive linemen is crazy. He has all these incredible, clips from training camp, from the stadium practice, from preseason and all that stuff. He didn't play a lot in preseason, but that was because the Ravens know his worth. They know his value. Same thing with Malachi Starks. They understand that they're rookies, but they understand how good they are as players, and they don't want to risk anything going into the season because they're rookies, but they're going to play a very, very vital role. Mike Green also, if you go to draft, if you go to DraftKings, or if you go to sports betting stuff, Mike Green is actually, I think, 5th or 4th in defensive rookie of the year odds. And he's somebody who was picked in the 2nd round. So it's very uncommon to have somebody in the top 4, top 5, a defensive rookie of the year who went in the 2nd round. That's not very common. But they understand that Mike Green, in terms of the football player, 100% should have been a top 15, top 20 pick in the draft. If you go back to my mock draft videos, I think I had him going 15th to the Falcons in all of my mock drafts, and he ended up landing at the Ravens. I never thought in a million years he would be he would be a Raven. I didn't think he'd be there at our first pick of the draft, and I also didn't think, for damn sure did not think that he would be there in the 2nd round. But we ended up getting him, and you got to be thankful for that. You got to be happy for that. But Mike Green is somebody who all offseason on Twitter, if you follow the Birds of a Feather Twitter, I've been raving about this guy and raving about how good he can be on the football field, and I really do think that he's somebody who can really elevate this defense to the next level. Then you have Jay Higgins, who was by far the best Ravens player on Jay Higgins was the best Ravens player throughout all of preseason. He was an undrafted free agent. We ended up picking him up. He went through all the training camp with us. He played like in every single preseason game. I think he had 2 interceptions in the preseason, multiple great plays. Jay Higgins was incredible in the preseason. He made like the all preseason first team. He was incredible for the Ravens, and he ended up making the team, which is really cool for him. And Jay Higgins is somebody who is not going to get a ton of reps this season, but just to have him as a depth guy is very, very, very good, and he's somebody who can make a lot of noise when his number gets called and when the opportunity comes from him. But for him to be on the team after being an undrafted free agent, it's hard enough to make a team as an undrafted free agent, but I mean, he was so good during the preseason. If you watch the games and even tuned into some of the episodes where he talked about it, his name was always popping up on defense. He was incredible for the Ravens this year in the preseason. Then you got Kyle Van Noy, the old guy, the old man himself. He had 12.5 sacks last year. He had more sacks than Micah Parsons last year. I think he was 4th in sacks last season. He had an incredible year. Obviously, he is getting older. I'm not expecting him to duplicate that season. But Kyle Van Noy, his past 2 seasons on the Ravens, I mean, these have been the best 2 years of his career. Obviously, he's known as kind of like a Patriots legend, a linebacker, not really even necessarily like an edge rusher for the Patriots for all those years during like the Tom Brady era. He was on that team. He was considered a very, good, he was considered a good, linebacker on that team. But whenever the Ravens ended up signing him, I mean, the 2 years that he's been with the Ravens, this is obviously going into his 3rd season. Ever since he's been on the Ravens, he has been so good for us. And it's so confusing because he's somebody who I didn't expect to be good at all. But, I mean, after his first season, I was like, okay, like Kyle Van Noy, he had a really good year. Like, I'm not really expecting him to do it again. And then last season, he has the best year of his entire career with 12.5 sacks. He was 4th in the NFL in sacks. And I kind of have that exact same thought, like, okay, he's not going to do it again this year. And if he goes over 12.5 sacks, that would be, I'll buy a Kyle Van Noy jersey if he goes over 12.5 sacks, and I'll put it on live for you guys. But Kyle Van Noy is somebody who I'm expecting to have a big impact. Obviously, he is getting older. He's a big veteran presence in the locker room, a big vocal point in the locker room as well, and he's somebody who can make a very, very, very big difference for the Ravens in this season. But going over to David Ojabo, somebody who potentially could have been cut this season, had a lot of stuff going on. He ended up making the team. Tavius Robinson and Odafe Owe. Odafe Owe is someone who's going to be a free agent next year. He ended up getting double-digit sacks this year. I think he had 10 or 11 on the season. A solid year for him. Somebody who had some high expectations. He was a first-round pick for the Ravens a few years ago. Going into his contract year, I'm expecting him to have a monster season. And then going over but to the defensive backs, to the DBs. This is the strongest point in my opinion. This is the strongest part of the entire Ravens team in terms of a room. If you go over to the secondary for the Baltimore Ravens, you've got Nate Wiggins, who was incredible last year in his rookie year, being surrounded by a bunch of veterans and stuff like that, and somebody who can improve even more. You have Chidobe Awuzie, a veteran who is just a very solid guy to have in your room. You have Kyle Hamilton, in my opinion, the best safety in the NFL, just got paid as the best safety, or just got the highest contract by a safety in NFL history. Very deserved. Last week, obviously, we signed him to a 4-year, or what was it? I think it was a 4-year, $100 million deal, $20 million per season, the most ever by a safety, setting the mark himself, as we knew that he would. But Kyle Hamilton, here to stay, in my opinion, the best player on this Ravens defense, and in my opinion, arguably a top 3, top 4 player on this Ravens team. He's elite. He's absolutely elite. He was a steal when we drafted him at pick 14. And you can go on and on about Kyle Hamilton, but I mean, when he's on the football field, he transcends this defense to another level. And when he's not on the field, this defense gets significantly worse. And we saw it sometimes throughout the season where I remember he had to get taken off in the Browns game, and they ended up lighting us up after he got taken out. But Kyle Hamilton, an incredible player. We all know him. We all love him. Sanasu Kane, somebody that we drafted in the draft this this year. He ended up making the team for that corner room. Jair Alexander, we talked about him before, incredible veteran on this team. Malachi Starks, he was the first-round pick for the Ravens this year, wearing number 24. Picked him at pick 27, I believe. But Malachi Starks, he's a beast. Went to Georgia, was considered one of the best defensive players in college football. Struggled a little bit near the end. Did fall in the draft, not necessarily because of his talent, but because of the position that he played. But the Ravens win, scooped him up, an absolute steal. Somebody who could also potentially win Defensive Rookie of the Year this season. Malachi Starks, a match made in heaven for us. TJ Tampa, somebody who last year, who was supposed to maybe go in like the second round last season in the draft, ended up falling to the Ravens. We ended up taking him, and he's on the roster this year. Ruben Lowry, an undrafted free agent. Keon Martin, an undrafted free agent. And then Marlon Humphrey, Marlo himself, Fruit Punch himself. Marlon Humphrey back on the team once again. An incredible corner. Actually had such a good year this past season. Obviously, I think back to the game against Tampa where he had 2 interceptions. I think back to the pick 6 against the Steelers where he picked off Russell Wilson and brought it back and really sealed the deal in that game. Marlon Humphrey obviously is a Ravens legend, as we know, and again, back with this team again, and again, going to be such a vital part of this team. Going over to special teams, obviously Jordan Stout at punter, Nick Moore at long snapper, and then Tyler Loop as your starting kicker. The Justin Tucker era in Baltimore is officially over. Came to a very abrupt halt. But Tyler Loop is now here. Tyler Loop is the starting kicker for the Ravens. Throughout stadium, camp, throughout preseason, throughout training camp, he's impressed everybody. He won the kicking job, and he's somebody who can be incredible. The fans love him already, and he's somebody that can be such a big part of this team. Obviously, your starting kicker is a big deal, and the Ravens for so many years have had Justin Tucker, as the kicker of this team for over a decade, and now that era is over, came to a very instant halt, and it is now Tyler Loop season. But the last thing that I do want to go over regarding the Ravens is just the schedule for the season. Obviously, this Sunday night football, week 1 against the Bills. Then you kind of, take it easy, week 2 against Cleveland at home. Obviously, Joe Flacco is the starter for the Browns, so what's funny about this game is Joe Flacco will be returning to Baltimore for the first time since we traded him away back in 2018, so that's going to be very interesting. But Cleveland coming to Baltimore week 2. And again, this Ravens schedule, we're kind of like sandwiched. Like the Browns game is sandwiched just in between 2 very difficult games. Week 1 at Buffalo, then you play Cleveland week 2, then in week 3, obviously, week 3 is the hard one, or another hard game. Monday Night Football in Baltimore at the Bank against the Detroit Lions on Monday Night Football. That's going to be a crazy game. Then week 4, you have the Kansas City Chiefs at 4:25 p.m. in Kansas City. Then week 5, you have the Texans in Houston. Then week 6, you have the Rams in Baltimore. Or sorry, you play the Texans in Baltimore. Then you play the Rams in Baltimore. Then week 7 is our bye week. Then week 8, we play the Bears in Baltimore. So back-to-back, really like back-to-back home games, then the bye week, and then another home game, and then a 3-game road trip here from weeks 9 through 11. Thursday Night Football against the Dolphins. This is our 3rd primetime game of the season. Thursday Night Football at Miami. Then we play on the road in Minneapolis, in Minnesota against the Vikings. Then we go on the road to Cleveland. Then we play the Jets at home in Baltimore in week 12. Then week 13 against the Bengals in Baltimore, Thursday, November 27th, 8:20 p.m., Thanksgiving Day primetime night game. That's going to be a ton of fun to watch. Week 14 against the Steelers in Baltimore. Week 15, we go to Cincinnati. Week 16, we play New England in Baltimore. Week 17, we go to Green Bay against the Packers. And then week 18, we go to the Steelers in Pittsburgh. So that's overall the schedule. I think like the over-under for the amount of wins is sitting around like 12 or 13 for the Ravens. And I mean, that should be expected. Like, you look at games like the Browns, you look at games like the Bears, the Jets, the Dolphins, the Browns again, the Patriots, hell, even like the Texans maybe, the Vikings as well. Those games should be fairly easy for the Ravens. Obviously, the very big, marquee, difficult matchups that I think that we're going to have, I want to say the Steelers, both of those Steelers games. We know that the Steelers on paper are not very good, but they are a team that have had the Ravens' number recently and Lamar's number recently, so they're just like a pesky bug that won't go away. It's a team that's just always there, and they always take at least one game from you. But a lot of time that's how like division football works. So obviously you have the Steelers, which are annoying. So hopefully we can sweep them, but if not, they'll probably take one game. But like the really hard games of the season that I'm looking at, obviously week 1 this Sunday against Buffalo, week 3 against the Lions, week 4 against the Chiefs, week 6 against the Rams, and then both Bengals games, and probably the Packers game. Those are the games that are going to be interesting. And I understand that Lamar and the Ravens have had the Bengals number recently. Lamar Jackson owns the Bengals in the games that he's played. I think he's 6-1 against the Bengals in his career. We beat them both times this past season. But they're a team that their defense is not great. They didn't really improve on defense at all. They got Shamar Stewart in the draft, who's good. But they ended up signing him late, and then they also have Trey Hendrickson, who they just ended up signing recently. So their defense isn't, on paper, very good, and we know that they perform very bad, but that offense is just so deadly and scary to watch out for. So the Bengals are a hard team to face, and then obviously the Bills, the Lions, the Chiefs, the Packers, the Rams, and then those games are going to be difficult. The Ravens will be favored in most of those games. And then also you have the Texans and the Bears and obviously the Steelers and even the Vikings, who can be good and be annoying to face. But overall, this Ravens schedule, it isn't the hardest thing in the world. Also isn't obviously the easiest thing in the world. If you want to see an easy schedule, go look up the San Francisco 49ers schedule and the Buffalo Bills schedule. Their schedules are so easy. But when you look at this Ravens schedule, it's not too bad. We've already talked about the schedule earlier this season, but again, this is the season preview heading into the year. But overall, the last thing I'm going to say about this preview, we've already been recording for 51 minutes now. The expectations for this Ravens team is to win a Super Bowl. This team has gone through some very, very, very heartbreaking moments over the past couple of years, really the past 3 years as well. You think back to the fumble in the jungle 3 years ago with Tyler Huntley at QB. You think back to 2 years ago, the AFC Championship game in Baltimore, 1 game away from making the Super Bowl, the most important game played in M&T Bank Stadium. I was there in person. It was an electric crowd for only a little bit. Obviously as the game went on, hope was getting lost, but it was still there because the defense was playing so well. That season, that year, 2 years ago, really that was, I don't want to say that was the year, but, obviously the Triple Crown defense, Mike McDonald coached that defense, heartbreaking loss. So 2 years ago, obviously that AFC Championship loss sucked. Lamar Jackson threw that, interception in the triple coverage. He also fumbled the ball, the infamous Zay Flowers fumble at the 1 yard line. You think back to all of that, just heartbreaking moments. And then, obviously, potentially the most heartbreaking of them all last season in Buffalo, 25-27 game, 2-point conversion for the Ravens with a minute left on the clock in the fourth quarter. Ravens win for the 2-point conversion. Corner the end zone in Mark Andrews' hands. He drops it. Game over. You think back to that, obviously that was heartbreaking. The Lamar Jackson fumble, the Lamar Jackson interception as well. Just the turnovers that this team has had in the past few years in the playoffs has really, really killed them. And no matter how good of a team you are in the regular season, if you're going into the playoffs and turning over the ball, even if your defense is playing well, if you're turning over the ball, you're just not – your chances of winning just drop significantly, and it gets to a point. For the past few years for the Ravens in the playoffs have been hell. It's been torture. It's been bad. It's been heartbreaking. And this team, once again, we say it every single year that this is the year. Guys, this is the year. Guys, this has to be the year for the Ravens. You look at who's going into free agency next year, guys like Tyler Linderbaum, guys like Odafe Oweh, guys like Isaiah Likely, guys like Mark Andrews. The Ravens will not be able to get every single one of those guys back. Their money is not, they do not have a lot of money to go out and sign big free agents either. So the roster that they have, obviously re-signing Rashad Bateman, Derrick Henry, Kyle Hamilton, Ronnie Stanley, those were huge. And I'm sure they'll get Isaiah Likely on an extension. They'll get Lamar on an extension. But this team as it's built right now is obviously incredible. But I'm telling y'all right now, they are going to get worse next year. After last season going into this offseason, I knew in my head that this Ravens team wasn't really going to get much worse, or really wasn't going to get worse, because the only major free agent that we had was Ronnie Stanley, and we ended up re-signing him. So other than that, I knew that we weren't going to get significantly worse as a team. So that's why I'm not sitting here saying like last year I'm like, oh, this was the year, it's over next season. And again, I'm not saying that next year we're not going to be able to win the Super Bowl. We could still 100% win the Super Bowl next season, and we'll be one of the favorites to win it again next year, because as long as Lamar Jackson is your quarterback, and as long as we have the key players on defense that we do lock down for long term, and the key players on offense locked down that we do long term, this team is going to be favored. But in terms of a complete lineup with guys like DeAndre Hopkins and Jair Alexander, and the guys heading to free agency on their contract years, that's kind of what I'm talking about as a complete lineup as a whole. And that's pretty much just what I'm saying about that. I'm not sitting here saying, again, that we're not going to win next year and do good next year, but the team is going to be, on paper, worse next season. So just prepare for that. So this team, as it stands right now, is the cream of the crop. This is the best. I'm not saying it's the best it's going to get. I'm saying that this team, as it stands right now, is incredibly good. It's the best Ravens team on paper, I think, that Lamar Jackson's ever had. On paper, this team is absolutely stacked out the wazoo. When you look at this team on paper, it's incredible. But something that this Ravens team, and guys like Ray Lewis and Michael Phelps, who came in to training camp and practice and stuff like that, stuff that they say is, this team on paper can look amazing. This team has all these extremely high expectations. But nothing matters unless you go out there and actually prove it and go out there and actually get the job done. We can be, on paper, the best team in football, but if we go out there and goof around and don't be locked in for these games, we could start off on a very, we could start off very bad, and it can end up really, biting us in the ass later on in the season as we go on throughout the year. So obviously every game during the regular season means so much, even weeks 1, 2, 3. If you think back to last season, the Ravens started off 0-2 last year, and it was looking scary. And obviously they bounced back in a big way in the regular season. But, obviously the Ravens need to go out there and compete in the regular season, do good, make the playoffs, win the division, do all that stuff. But at the end of the day, and it's the same thing like with the Buffalo Bills, this team needs to go into the playoffs and get the job done, go to the Super Bowl, and win it all. The expectations for this team, point blank period, win the Super Bowl. And minimum expectations, like expectations in terms of what I think fans would be happy with. I think fans would be happy with making the Super Bowl, and I think that obviously the best thing that they can do is win the Super Bowl. So it's just about making it to the Super Bowl. 2 years ago, Lamar Jackson and this team made the AFC Championship game. They had home field advantage in the game too. They were one game away from making the Super Bowl, and they fell short. Last year they lost in the divisional round. 2 years ago they lost 3 years ago they lost in the wild card. They lost in the divisional round 5 years ago. This team has been right there so many times. Same thing with the Bills. I'm not just saying that this is just the Ravens. The Bills have been in the exact same scenario. But it's going to come down to who wants it more. And I know for a fact that this Ravens team wants it badly. Lamar Jackson talks about over and over and over again how he's so tired of being right there. And I know that this Ravens team will prevail and do its thing and play well. They just got to go out there and get the job done. They got to go out there and do what they need to do. They got to execute the games. They got to go out there and win. And when it comes to the playoffs, that's where everything's really going to matter. That's when things are really going to matter at the end of the day. We understand that this team, in terms of the playoffs, is what we're looking forward to. Just getting the job done in the postseason. And let's see if they do it. Do I think that they can do it? 100%. I think 100% that they can do it. I don't know with the mindset, what the mindset needs to be going into the playoffs. I don't know if John Harbaugh needs to get these guys right in a different way, or just a different mentality, or whatever it needs to be. But this team 100% has expectations to win the Super Bowl. Everybody on planet Earth knows it. Everybody that watches football knows it. There's a ton of people that picked the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. They did that last year. They did that the year before. And they're going to do it again because the talent on this team and the talent of Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry and Kyle Hamilton and Roquan Smith and guys like that, the talent is too good to just ignore and push away and say, oh, they're not a good team in the playoffs. People are still going to pick the Ravens to win the Super Bowl because of how good they are as a team. And they just got to go out there. They just got to go out there and execute, man. I mean, that's the expectation. That's the season preview. That's the expectation. Go out there and win the damn Super Bowl. You look at teams like the Jets. You look at teams like the Browns. You look at teams like the Saints. You look at teams like the Giants. I don't want to diss the Giants because they got a lot of good things going on. But when you look at some of the teams that I just named, if I was in their position doing a podcast about the Cleveland Browns, I would not go on here and say, the expectation is that this team needs to win games and go win a Super Bowl. I would not say that at all because that's not their expectation. Their expectation is maybe to find a quarterback. Maybe to find a starting quarterback is their expectation. I don't really know. But teams, and not just from outside, fans and media, but the teams themselves have these conversations about, what their expectations are heading into a season. They have conversations about what they need to do. And again, the Ravens know that their expectations are high. But again, I'll say it once again, and I'll say it all throughout the season as well. They just got to go out there and execute and get the job done. But thank you guys so much for tuning into and listening to this episode of Birds of a Feather. If you like this content, make sure to subscribe on YouTube, follow up on Spotify, make sure to like the video on YouTube as well. Also make sure to click the link in the bio of whatever platform you're listening on, either Spotify or YouTube. Make sure to click the link in the bio, check out the socials, check out the Instagram, check out the Twitter, make sure to give those a follow as well. And thank you guys so much for watching this episode. This is, I think, my longest episode I've ever done on this show so far. This is over an hour long. So for all the people that stayed and listened to this entire thing, I love y'all. Thank you so much for, giving me the time of day to talk about the Ravens, talk about the Orioles, to yap about these teams. Because at the end of the day, this is why we're here. This is what we do this for. To be able to discuss the love of these teams. And, I appreciate all of you guys, all the support. We got some big things coming up very, very soon. Towards the end of this month, we're going to have some big reveals going on about the future of this show and kind of just the overall direction that this show is going to go in. It's a lot of really cool stuff going on. Obviously, football season starts this Sunday. Well, really, football starts on Thursday, but the Ravens season starts on Sunday. Make sure to watch football when it's on. Make sure to be engaged. Again, I appreciate all the support. I can say it over and over and over again. I can make this, episode another hour long, just showing the appreciation that I have for a lot of you guys and for a lot of the people that are watching this show. It still is kind of crazy to me that people want to hear me talk about, the Ravens and talk about the Orioles. Because, again, the Ravens and the Orioles, it's a sports team at the end of the day. And there's a lot of podcasts out there that are like murder mysteries and, political stuff and all that type of stuff. But, here we just talk about sports. And we have a damn good time doing it. And I appreciate all you guys, again, for giving me the time of day to listen to me talk about these teams. And I hope you enjoyed as well. I'll be back tomorrow with another episode. And tomorrow we're going to be talking about the Orioles and the Padres game 3. I think it's kind of a day game. I don't know what time exactly we play. Let me actually look this up real quick. Tomorrow we play at 3 o'clock. So sometime tomorrow, early in the night, or sometime tomorrow afternoon, I'll have an episode up talking about that. And then we're also going to be talking about kind of the game preview this Saturday. So the day before the Ravens game, we are going to kind of look into the matchup, look into the team, final injury reports, all that stuff. And then also leading up to the game on Sunday. So tomorrow during practice tomorrow, we're going to go over a lot of stuff as well. We're going to go over all the stuff for practice tomorrow. The Ravens did not have practice today, but tomorrow we're going to go over stuff from Wednesday's practice, go over the Orioles game as well. There's plenty to talk about tomorrow and plenty to talk about for the next few months with Ravens content, obviously, and Orioles content for the rest of this month. So I appreciate all you guys again. I'll see you guys in the next one. I'll see you guys tomorrow. You have a great rest of y'all's day. Go O's, go Ravens, and I'll see y'all later. Peace out.